You know those massive, kind of invisible digital systems that run, well, everything? Our governments, our banks, our healthcare. They're the absolute bedrock of our modern world. But here's the thing. Deep inside these huge structures, there's a hidden danger growing, and it's one that could grind our most essential services to a total halt. So what is this danger exactly? And more importantly, what can we do about it? Let's dig in.
Okay, so our most critical institutions, we're talking everything from federal agencies to the biggest banks, they're all built on these vast digital foundations. But you got to remember, a lot of these systems were built up over decades, just layer after layer after layer, and they've become this incredibly complex, tangled mess. So the real question is, what happens when that mess starts to fall apart?
Well, this problem actually has a name. It's called technical debt. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like taking shortcuts when you're building a house. Sure, it might get the job done faster right now, but you're just creating these huge structural problems that are going to be incredibly expensive and difficult to fix down the road. For big organizations, this debt just keeps piling up over the years, and it leads to system failures, major security risks, and it just makes it impossible to innovate.
So the big question is, how in the world do you fix a problem that's been decades in the making? I mean, you can't just start knocking down walls, right? No way. You need a plan. You need what an architect would call a blueprint. And this, right here, is where a discipline called enterprise architecture comes into play.
And it's such a simple but really powerful idea when you think about it. I mean, you would never ever dream of building a skyscraper without a super detailed blueprint, right? One that shows how every single floor, every wire, every pipe all connect together. So why on earth would we treat a multi-billion-dollar digital system, which is honestly way more complex, any differently? It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, so what is enterprise architecture, officially? Well, it's the whole discipline of bringing order, clarity, and structure to these unbelievably complex environments. But here's the most crucial part. It's all about aligning that big picture strategy with what's actually happening on the ground, the execution.
And just like with a real building, the process is super logical. First up, you've got to assess the existing structure. Figure out what's working, what's broken, and where all the cracks are. Then, step 2, you design the blueprint for that future state, where you actually want to end up. And finally, you create that step-by-step construction roadmap for how you're going to get there, safely and efficiently.
But look, this kind of architectural planning is a really specialized skill. It takes serious expertise. So let's take a look at one firm, ArcMetis, and use them as a kind of case study to see how this all works in the real world and how they're helping organizations totally redefine their future.
So ArcMetis is based in Washington, D.C., and they've really positioned themselves as strategic advisors who are focused completely on this architectural clarity. I mean, their tagline, redefine the future state, it just gets right to the heart of what they do. They help leaders first envision and then build a better, more stable digital future. So, who exactly are they? Well, ArcMetis is what's known as a woman-owned small business, or WOSB for short. That's a specific certification, especially important for federal contracting. And a really key part of their whole model is their independence. See, by focusing only on giving advice and staying separate from the companies that actually implement the changes, their guidance can be completely 100% unbiased.
And man, when you look at who they serve, you really get a sense of how high stakes this work is. We're talking about C-suite leaders and executive teams at federal agencies, state and local governments, and huge, heavily regulated enterprises in finance and healthcare. These are the kinds of places where, let's be honest, getting it wrong is just not an option.
Okay, so how does a firm like this actually do it? How do they turn all that organizational complexity into pure clarity? Well, they follow a really structured methodology, one they call the path to clarity. Their whole process breaks down into 5 really clear steps. It all starts with discovery, just understanding the core mission of the organization. Then they move to current state clarity, which is all about mapping out what actually exists today, warts and all. From there, they help define the future state, the vision. And once that's clear, they create the roadmap and governance plan to actually get there. And the final step? Executive deliverables. That's where they package all these findings into clear, actionable insights that the leadership can actually use. We can actually break this down even further into 4 core phases of their work. So during the assessment phase, they're all about finding the strategic gaps. Then, in the design phase, that's where they create the vision for that target state. For the transition, they're building out those big multi-year roadmaps. And finally, governance. This is where they establish the frameworks and accountability you need to make sure the changes actually stick. It's a really comprehensive approach, from start to finish. Okay, but let's be real. This field is crowded with huge consulting firms. So what makes a specialized company like ArcMetis really stand out from the pack? Well, let's take a look at what makes them different.
There are a few things that really pop. First, their engagements are led directly by the founder. That means you've always got that top-level expertise right there in the room. Second, their approach is implementation agnostic. In plain English, that means they recommend the best solution for you, not just one that's tied to a specific company or vendor. And third, they have deep expertise in critical federal standards. Things like zero trust, which is this modern security model that basically assumes no one is trusted by default. Super important stuff.
And that expertise, it's built on years of experience. We're talking over 15 years of the founder advising C-suite leaders in some of the most complex organizations you can imagine, both public and private. That is a seriously deep well of knowledge to draw from.
And this quote here from the founder, Sori Javani, it really just crystallizes their whole mission. She says, the entire firm was built to provide independent architecture-led advisory services that are free from implementation bias. It's all about providing that clear, unbiased advice, period. You know, if you had to boil their entire philosophy down to just one single guiding principle, this would be it. Clarity before complexity. The idea is simple. You just can't solve a complex problem until you first make it crystal clear. That's the foundation of everything they do. So what's the bottom line here? It's this. ArcMetis acts as the architect. They provide that detailed blueprint, and that blueprint is what gives leaders the clarity they absolutely need to make confident, informed decisions. And ultimately, that de-risks these massive projects and helps them build a much more stable and reliable future.
And that really leaves us with a pretty powerful question, one that goes way beyond just technology. If clarity truly is the first step to making progress, just imagine what kind of future we could build for our companies, for our institutions, for our whole society, if we all just made a point to start with a better blueprint.